AITA for refusing to apologize to my sil after she was rude during my daughter's birthday dinner. I, 39M, lost my wife earlier this year. Then my job was affected by the pandemic. My daughter just turned 13, and knows we're not doing the best financially. My job picked back up thankfully, but we don't have a lot of extra money yet. For my daughter's birthday, I invited my parents, brother, and he invited Sil, to have a small dinner with us over the weekend. I really tried to make it enjoyable for my daughter. I made her favorite meal, spaghetti with my wife's meat sauce recipe, a copycat Olive Garden salad and dressing, and homemade garlic bread. I then was able to get a few small gifts for her. I even made a small cake. It was iced atrociously, but I tried. I have never liked my sil. She looks down at our family and she was always awful to my wife. Still, I'm usually able to be civil to her. We ate, and my dad wanted my daughter to open her gifts. I am thrilled because while it wasn't much, she seemed very happy about what she received from my parents and myself. My sil made snarky comments during dinner and gift opening, which I could tell irritated my daughter. Afterwards, my parents left, and my daughter went to FaceTime my wife's parents. My sil stalked into the kitchen and started berating me about being cheap for her birthday and then saying, "What would your wife think?" I shouldn't have, and I admit I completely lost my temper, but I was so angry I told her my wife would be thrilled I managed to pull something together, including ignoring her snotty comments all night. But considering she showed up completely empty-handed but had no problem shoving her mouth full of the food I made, and criticizing everyone who did make an effort, she didn't have any room to be calling anyone cheap. She ran to my brother crying and they left in a huff. My parents called saying my brother was saying I was rude to his wife and ruined the night. I told them what happened and they are angry at Sil and my brother now. Brother is still blaming me and is now having a fit because I said she wasn't welcome in my home again, and if that meant not seeing him, so be it. My brother says I should apologize for being an asshole to keep the peace, but my dad says to stick to my guns and she doesn't deserve an apology. I do not plan to apologize, but AITA for it. Too long didn't read. AITA for making my sil cry after telling her off after she'd been rude all night during my daughter's birthday. Never apologize to someone to keep the peace. It's disingenuous and tells them that their shitty behavior is excusable. She had the nerve to insult you as a guest in your home, and delivered a truly vile low blow when she asked what your wife would think. You let her off easy emo. Hard NTA. You do not need her bad energy in your life. NTA. Don't ever invite her again. NTA. She didn't bother to bring even a tiny gift for her niece. Not even a gift card. And she thinks she's not cheap. And then to eat your food, and constantly criticize everything, and to irritate the birthday girl. How rude. Do not let her back in until she can at least fake trying to be nice and kind and keep her comments to herself for after she leaves. Seriously, she didn't even attempt to pretend to be nice on her niece's birthday. Her niece's first birthday without her mother, during a pandemic. How utterly heartless to do that to a kid. NTA. Listen to your dad, he's right. Your sil doesn't deserve an apology and your brother is way off base in his response. I particularly hate when assholes fake cry and act like the offended party. I think some people are dumb as all hell, and no offense but I'm gonna stick your brother in this category. Sometimes you gotta be blunt with what happened for them to even understand, especially if they're being manipulated by someone, sil, to confuse the details, so I'd send him a text message with bullet points. Plus it's my daughter's first birthday without her mother, my first time celebrating my daughter's birthday without my wife, and your wife's rant was horribly insensitive and inconsiderate to us. Plus my daughter was upset with your wife's snarky comments throughout the night, and it dampened her birthday. Plus I'm financially struggling, and your wife berated me for being cheap. Plus I'm emotionally struggling, and your wife tried to use my recently dead wife to guilt me into not having more money. Plus your wife brought nothing to a birthday dinner, and still complained about everything. Plus we are still grieving and learning how to get by without my wife. We welcome support, but we don't need judgment and rude accusations from your wife. We expect an apology from the both of you, otherwise don't bother coming over again. We have to protect ourselves now more than ever, and I'm not going to let your wife think she has any right to treat us like she did that night. AITA for possibly costing my son his best friend. Second update, just wanted to say thank you for the incredible outpouring of support. I could have never imagined my post blowing up the way it did. I heard from so many people who have had similar experiences. I am hopeful that maybe Epic, who is Fortnite's creator, can see this and give us a parental control that would block gifting. That in itself seems like it would be huge help. To the people who had to go over the top, please look at yourselves. Calling a 10-year-old boy a cunt, threatening violence and just being overly rude. He is a kid who got off the tracks, and yes, what he was doing was wrong, but he is still a kid and he has good parents who I am sure will now pay closer attention to what their kids are doing online. And again, I had many conversations with my son about this not being how friends treat each other. My son is the biggest kid in his class, so I'm not worried about physical threats, but I was sure to explain that bullying comes in many forms and that what his friend was doing was in fact bullying. Yeah, bullying Billy. Sounds good. But I just can't say thank you enough for all of the support and awards. I was able to show my son just how many people cared about his situation and how this whole thing made it to the front page. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Thank you, Reddit. Update, so I went to pick him up from school and he was doing great. He said yes, his friend is mad at him but that he was still talking to him. Billy has lost his gaming, phone and internet privileges for 30 days and was made to apologize to my son. I was trying to keep my posting somewhat short, so I didn't explain how much we talked about all of this. We go on nightly walks. I took the time to explain that real friends don't this type of stuff, and my son totally understands that. I haven't heard back yet from the mom, but have no reason to think she won't follow through and pay us back. Thank you to all you that commented, and wow, I have never received awards like this before. Thank you to all. And to people posting that why did I do this or saying I made a bad choice, I will just say that I've had many parents and people reply they have gone through similar stuff and that this post hit home with them, so that reason enough to me. Thank you again, everyone. My son, 10, has been playing Fortnite with his best friend for a couple years. For about a year and a half of that time it was just the two of them playing, and in the last 6 months more and more of their classmates have started to join in. My kids are with me every other week, and on the weeks they are here I spend a good amount of time with them, chilling, doing homework, movies, etc. I live with my GF and her 3 kids, so we spend a lot of time in the boys' very large bedroom. About 3 months ago I started noticing my son being upset and found out that he was being kicked from the groups, and at first I was concerned maybe he was being a dickhead or whatever. About 2 months back I was in their room and my son was playing with his friends, and I heard him kind of begging and saying don't kick me, and then he said I don't have V-Bucks to get you that skin, and then he got kicked. I asked him what was going on and he downplayed it and I let it go. Since that point I've seen the same thing happen a few more times, and I finally got him to open up to me, and it turns out he has been being bullied by his friend for a long time into giving/gifting skins, emotes and other items. I explained to him that I got the V-Bucks for him to get stuff for himself and that I can't afford to be getting his friends stuff. He said he understood and said he would stop. It turns out that his friend has been doing this to all of his friends, and he opened up to me that he had given this kid 20+ items ranging from 1,200 to 2,000 V-Bucks, $12 to 20 each. So I've spent anywhere from $250 to $400 on this kid that I know of. I had written out a long text to the kid's mom a couple weeks back, and for some reason I decided not to send it. Well, Tuesday, yep, you guessed it, I was in the kid's bedroom and I heard, no Billy, I don't have enough V-Bucks to get you that skin. But then I heard, you know what Billy, I've given you more than 20 things and you've given me one. He was of course kicked from the group. That was the last straw for, and I guess for, my son. It turns out that the other kids were giving this kid whatever he wanted, and that was why my son often was the one who would get kicked. Told him I was going to be sending his friend's mom a text explaining everything, and I also had some text messages with Billy saying if you buy me this skin I will refriend you. He begged me not to send it, but I obviously thought it was important enough that the mom needed to know what her kid was doing. She replied back in a very understanding way. apologizing to my son and to me, and said she would be talking to her son yesterday after school. So my son didn't want to go to school today because he is worried about how things will be. So AITA, or did I do the right thing? Hard to ruin a 5 years best friend relationship, and yes, I see that this kid wasn't really being a best friend. Oddly, I blame COVID for bringing this on. For 6 months the only place they saw each other was online. And yes, the mother has offered to reimburse us for the V-Bucks. NTA, that kid wasn't his friend to begin with. Your son is just a genuine soul who obviously cares very deeply for those he thinks are. NTA, Billy is an awful bully that uses friendship as a weapon. You did the right thing telling his mom. I hope you also sit down with your son and talk to him about everything that happened. When I was little, I didn't realize I was being bullied until someone pointed it out. NTA, you are protecting your son from being bullied and financially abused. Your son is not mature enough to understand the situation, and you have to do what is best for his interest. He will come to understand your reasons. AITA, for telling my husband I'll go back to work if he doesn't give me 50% of his earnings. I'm currently a ZARM. I never wanted to be one. But when I had my kid, it broke my heart when I could barely spend time with her due to my work. I wanted at least one parent to be with her while she grows up. He wanted the same too. So I decided to quit my job. I had some savings, I could manage for a while. He told me he'd support us well. I was earning thrice as much as him, and our lifestyle would take a temporary hit, but we wouldn't be in trouble. When we both were working, we mostly split the chores 50-50, but now it became 100 me, and 0 him. I was taking care of the baby, the house, groceries, taxes, walking the dog, cleaning and watering, maintenance, etc. I was beyond exhausted. I asked him for help occasionally and he made a big show of doing it, said I'm not going to work anyway, so I should be doing all of this by myself with no help from him. I agree that I should be doing a lot, but not everything. He would act like he was a benevolent god if he washed one dish, and it was getting on my nerves. He wanted me to cook what he wanted whenever he wanted, learn to cook new things for him when he felt like it, to do his laundry and clean up after him constantly, which pissed me off. I also realized I was still paying for most of the household expenses from my savings, and he was barely contributing anything. So I told him that he's treating me like trash, like a live-in maid, and I can't take being ignored and expected to serve him constantly. He told me this is what a ZARM should do. So I told him that unless he gives me 50% of his salary for household expenses and baby expenses and contributes at home at least 25%, I will go back to work. He threw a huge fit about it, and I called up my old job, who had been dying to have me back, and set up an interview, a formality. Honestly, they will take me back with no questions asked. He's sulking, saying I should be home with the baby. I'd rather continue to earn and come home to the baby than act as his butler. I really don't know. NTA! Exclamation mark. This irritates and upsets me to read because this is exactly what my father did to my mother. You are not a maid. You are a mum, a super mum. It sounds it. Can't expect you to do everything at his command on the daily. Being the sole income earner does not give someone the right to treat their partner like shit. I hope you're okay and can figure out something where you can go back to work and look after yourself more. NTA. Why isn't he as off if you earn so much more than him? You're not just his free live-in maid. You actually pay for it. Makes absolutely 0 sense. He told me he enjoys doing his job and would get depressed if he left it. I did suggest it to him, but he SSJ'd his mental health would be affected, so I agreed to quit instead. NTA. He's the sole financial contributor to the household but expects you to pay the household costs from savings. Unreal. NTA, but I disagree with your 50% request. 100% of his income belongs to the family, to be first spent keeping the family housed, fed and clothed, and then on whatever else you both agree to, fun money for each of you, savings, whatever. Every time I see married couples with separate finances in this sub, someone is getting royally screwed. I almost feel it's a worse red flag than age gap relationships. And I'm sure dear random reader, that your separate finances arrangement is different. As a matter of fact, my age gap marriage is different. Just because exceptions exist doesn't mean we are permanently barred from noticing patterns. Edit, I meant sub not thread.